You do not even have to have elections anymore because you can already predict and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
This is the United Uprising channel. Welcome to today's show. Get ready for the cyber war that is going to ensue in 2024. Now, the real cyber war to be concerned about, of course, is the global elites draining and shutting off the bank accounts of the civilians and setting everybody at zero, because that's eventually what they have planned for us, is to reset everybody to zero. And now all they have to do is do a great big blackout and say all the systems were destroyed during the blackout, some type of solar flare they'll claim it is, or some type of attack from a different country, etc. The boogeyman, in other words, and they'll set everybody to zero and say all the data was erased, so nobody knows who had what in their bank account as of yesterday. That, of course, is the big problem that we're all going to face eventually and start fresh at zero. But for the time being, they want to use the boogeyman, known as the cyber criminal, for the illusion of the elections that are coming up. Now, we all know they've used this narrative over and over again with Donald Trump and Biden back and forth, each side, the left and the right, keeps blaming the other side for rigging elections. All the elections are fully rigged. Let's understand that first. And this is a story that's out there about Vladimir Putin declaring a cyber war on Britain. This is part of how they are going to literally take away elections, even though they have. Let's start there. The elections are not real. Everybody out there should know that. If you're new to this, they're not real. They are completely fake. It's an illusion of election. It's an illusion of choice. And then, of course, so that they could blame you for the party's troubles and what's going on. They're trying to convince people that a new form of government needs to be established. It's psychologically in their minds, they all agree, because they see the chaos that's going on. They're getting worn down by all the drama that they continually spew on the media. It's all done by design to eventually remove the republic, which is now gone. And of course, they talk about undermining democracy and talk about how the citizens and the civilians are the ones who are responsible for voter fraud and claiming the other side is responsible for voter fraud. So what we have now is Vladimir Putin and the cyber war that is to come. This is going to affect America. This article says if you're already bored with the pre-election electioneering being mounted by UK political parties, then stand by for global pre-election electioneering. This year, over 2 billion people will vote for new governments across the globe. The US, the UK, Iran, India, Pakistan, Mexico, EU, Russia, and then it puts a joke, Indonesia, and a host of European nations, in short, a combined population of 49% of the earth, they say world. That will be good news for journalists and good news for campaigners who will benefit from the billions of pounds spent. But 2024 will be a year like no other for the use of social media by those who want to destroy the rule of law and undermine democracy. So there is no democracy, okay? There is no rule. The rule of law is obey these dictators who have been put in place from the UN, from the, all the, like the World Economic Forum, et cetera, from all these globalist organizations that pull the strings on these fake politicians who are nothing more than actors. Now, when we hear Putin, we hear cyber wars and stuff. This all obviously goes back to the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, right? So people don't realize that Putin is one of them. I hear a lot of conservative people who like Putin. It's unbelievable that they don't realize that the right and the left work together. They refuse to believe it. They refuse to get past that. And again, that's exactly how this whole operation is being done by design. The illusion of freedom, the illusion of choice, that one party is here for the people while the other one isn't, and each side blames the other for all the problems. The reality is that Vladimir Putin was hand-selected. He was groomed by the World Economic Forum under Klaus Schwab, just like Trudeau, just like all these people. You can listen for yourself. I used this clip many times over, but here's just proof right out of the mouth of the devil himself.
That when you brought the Young Global Leaders Program here for executive education and the Schwab Fellows, but there are two countries in the world now in which the young global leaders have emerged. Tell us just a bit about that in terms of the governance.
Yes, actually, this notion to integrate young leaders is part of the World Economic Forum since many years. And I have to say, when I mention our names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin, and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
So now we have them warning to be on the lookout for, quote, deep fakes. Artificial intelligence can now help generate images and videos that are incredibly believable. In the war in Ukraine, U.S. politics, and Gaza, we've seen them being pumped onto social media by bots, and the army of supporters of one side or the other. Once established, people can't help but share them if they represent what the reader wants to believe or if they collaborate a conspiracy. So instead of going, why do we have this technology? How do we allow this technology with deepfakes? We've allowed it to happen. Why have we allowed it to happen? Well, they entertain you with it, right? They go, hey, have you seen the deepfake of Tom Cruise? And everybody's entertained. And they watch it and they love it. And they don't realize that this is a dangerous, deadly tool that the government has planned to use against you. Because it's only a matter of time before they start deepfaking actual people like me and you and throwing us in prison and doing all sorts of things. We already see them using this type of technology on innocent civilians. And it's only a matter of time before they'll be using it on anybody who they, quote, see as a threat to them, which would be somebody who's a conspiracy theorist. So it goes on to say, there is a deep web on the internet, is deep. 90% of us get our news and information from the internet, but lurking in the depths are secrets and spies. If an adversary can release information into those depths, it knows that gossip and sensationalism will do the rest to infiltrate mainstream media. Russia has often used this method to spread compromising information from a person or government to destabilize elections. So this is all done by design because elections aren't going to exist. And what is the world going to look like? You might say, well, how is the world going to exist with no elections anywhere? Well, they're going to still pretend like you're voting and all this stuff because they're going to tell you they know what's best for you. And this is right out of Klaus Schwab's mouth himself, where they talked about how artificial intelligence is so smart and so advanced that artificial intelligence will know who you want in power. You won't even need to vote anymore.
The technology now is, and digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
And of course, when you hear that and see that, your brain should automatically say, wow, so you're going to dictate and tell us who should stay in power, and you're going to convince everyone out there that that's who they want to have in power. And even if they refuse to, or they say they don't want that person, well, you'll use your powers to restrain their speech, et cetera, et cetera. And we allow this to continue, right? When you see Klaus Schwab and you hear the stuff coming out of his mouth like that about elections, about all these other things, and you actually think we're still free, you're completely wrong because we're not. They're all getting their strings pulled from these globalists like Klaus Schwab, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all the elite families that we know about and know of. So when we hear something like that said, okay, what we should do as civilians is say, okay, well, now they're saying that there could be deep fakes involved with the election. Maybe we should do something about that, right? Maybe we should eliminate this type of tech. They tell you, well, this technology is good for the advancement of humanity. No, it's not. Then we hear them talk about how AI will tell us what's best. It'll know what we want. It knows better than we even know, is what this guy is telling us. Why these people aren't being arrested, how we're allowing this, is really mind-boggling at this point. How we've even allowed them to censor speech the way they've censored speech, and how people are actually asleep at this point and not seeing what's going on is the most amazing part of all, right? So they're talking about elections and then how, we can't, voter fraud, hacking, all this stuff. And where does it transition to? It transitions right into what Klaus Schwab said. And they're going to use technology as a comforter word so that people hear that and they go, but I love my tech. I trust my tech. Well, it doesn't see skin color. It doesn't see this. It doesn't see that. It just sees facts, right? It just sees facts. They don't realize that somebody's programming it to be programmed a certain way, et cetera. And they'll go along with that. And they'll say, well, everything's safer. Everything's better with this stuff. And literally you'll have a global dictatorship under artificial intelligence. That's what this is, right? So they're telling you about the election stuff. We know that that's coming, right? We know it's coming all around the earth. And then when we sit there and we see the narratives, I've covered this over the years, Brazil, we see the same script. Oh, they're rioting at the Capitol. That's one of the things, if you're new to all this stuff, it's not a new story here in America with Donald Trump on the 6th day of January. Okay, the same script was used in Brazil. They've been using it in all countries. It's the same blueprint. And they use the same crap they feed us here. They feed all the citizens that in all other countries. It's the same script. It's the same thing over and over and over. Here's what they don't tell you. They don't want you to hear these stories in separate countries so that people don't get, catch on to it. And if you do catch on, they say, well, it's crazy conservatives. Why? Because the conservatives don't want any type of tyrannical dictatorships in power. The liberals now view all the conservatives as dictators, as fascists, etc. Everything, as the satanic doctrine says, is inverted. Everybody is literally looking at reality the opposite way of what's going on, whether it's the right or the left. And that's why it's so important to pull out of both. I can't say it enough. I've said it over and over again over the years. It is imperative to get out of both. So the narrative that's floating around is that Putin is going to get involved in the elections again this year. They're preparing you for this. He's going to get involved in the UK. Don't worry about how, or you know what I mean? This will bring more censorship online, of course. They could declare whoever they want as a, I constantly say I don't support Donald Trump because I don't support any of them. I think they're all in bed together. I said it a million times. I get lumped into that by default, right? Oh, he's a conspiracy. We don't have to listen to what he says because they don't listen to what anyone says. They just judge you and put you in a bucket, and they decide who can speak and who can't speak. You're speaking against the establishment and the current communist regime. You are a bad person. You are an enemy of the state. The reality is these people are all the enemy of the state. They're an enemy of all humans, all human beings. The Republican, Democrat, whatever you, socialist, whatever you like the most, they are going to enslave you with whatever they have to enslave you with as far as the mindset goes. Communism, the modern day communism, is called wokeism. It's the same thing. When people ask you, what is what is woke? Does anyone know, if you hear a grandma like, what is woke? What is wokeism? And they go, well, we can't really define what it is. It's a movement. It's communism with a new name. Because if they said communism out loud, some older liberals would be like, well, I don't know. Our forefathers fought against communism for so long we don't want it to be like this country or that country. And certainly nobody really wants us to be like China. But they're going to convince you that it's wokeism and it's a woke order and everything is woke and happy. And of course, they hijacked the term woke actually from truthers, because we used to say, we were woke, awake, etc. These people couldn't be more asleep who identify as woke, couldn't be more clueless. They're not even alive, so let's be real. There's nothing going on in their heads, at least. They might be walking around. They have no brains. They have nothing going on. It's not because of the side they choose, etc., etc. It's because they don't think for themselves. They're letting the state think for them. And that, in a nutshell, is communism and wokeism. So you're going to hear this narrative with Putin, with the elections in all these different countries, right? Oh, they're mingling in this. And whatever happens in the U.S. election, a lot of people don't even think we're going to get to that point. Whatever it is, just realize it's part of the script. It's part of the plan. None of it's real that they tell you. Nothing that they tell us is real. This is how they create a simulated reality that we're in. Everything. And people out there are like, no, Trump's trying to fight against it. All right, he wouldn't have been killed, et cetera, et cetera. They control all the media. Thus, they control all the politicians, and they control all the people. They're giving people the illusion and the division amongst the civilians of the left and the right in all these countries so that we stay divided with each other instead of united against this small group of people. It's as simple as that. And that's why people like me and you are censored and taken off the internet. They want to keep you in the hive mind. That's why the alt-right is so important to them. So they're already telling you in the first couple days of 2024 that the elections this year are going to be filled with cyber activity, cyber hacking, cyber wars, information wars. So more censorship is what it means. And nobody's going to believe the outcome of the election either way. Thus, when that happens, whoever they put in there, the other side's going to say it was rigged, right? If Trump wins again, the liberals are going to say it's rigged. And then they could usher in there, exactly what Klaus Schwab said. We don't even need voting anyway. The algorithms tell us who, the people want, right? And the majority of people do not want any of these communist liberals in power. It's very clear that more people would obviously support the other side, but they make it seem like with Hollywood, et cetera, that everybody's got the mindset of the communists, right? So they'll be on board. They'll be like, oh yeah, we'll be in for the artificial intelligence. We don't even have to go and vote. Everybody know, right? Nobody realizes that all this stuff ties into these meetings that they have, these globalist meetings like the UN meetings, et cetera. People don't realize they go there to scheme against us. They don't go there to, we're going to help figure out how to make lives better for other people. They go there to figure out literally how they're going to enslave our every move. That's what they do. And even the World Economic Forum, you hear that guy talking, people are like, oh, who cares about Klaus Schwab talking about that? What do we care? Oh, yeah. Every single politician that we have has gone through the World Economic Forum, whether it's the young leaders and all those things that the grooming organizations have, just like Freemasonry, with the D. Malays, the Job Stars, they're all groomed. All groomed back to this organization and other organizations like it. The Bilderberg meetings, right? The Trilateral Commission. We have a ton of them, right? Tons of them. The Club of Rome. I mean, we go on and on and on. But the point being is that something is coming. We all know that, right? Everybody can feel it. So whatever way they have it rigged, it's rigged. Don't believe that something that Trump's doing is, yes, we're breaking away, which is very likely that Trump's put back in to start this chaos. And then the other side doesn't believe it. The whole thing was rigged. And then they have to merge out of society into a new society, a better society, right? They're setting the states up to bring in outside civilians, right? All these places like California, everyone's running away. They're running away so they could tear down the infrastructure and put a new one in and then bring in and house in and bus in people who want to live inside of these smart cities. They're going to divide by state and conquer. That's the name of the game. So they're going to push this propaganda about cyber hacking. Putin, just like Trump, all these guys are in bed. The globalists have total control. And now they have to convince you that this is what you're doing, that you're the one responsible. You voted this way, you voted that. They're convincing everyone of that. Because if the people stay divided, the people can't unite and stop these psychopaths from what they have planned for us, which is global enslavement. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.